All things considered, it should have been impossible for Suicide Squad to fail on every fundamental level. All this movie had to do was not be a completely incoherent, jumbled mess of half-formed ideas and concepts, but, you know, surprise, surprise, that's exactly what it is. In fact, judging from pre-release marketing material released by DC and Warner Brothers, you'd think that you were buying a ticket for a drastically different film. Trailers and posters set Suicide Squad up to be a colorful, quirky, ultra-violent romp featuring villains trying and failing to be heroes, while indulging in gratuitous doses of schlocky fun. Instead, audiences are presented with a dark, confusing, slapdash plot that features unlikable characters that neither accurately portray their comic book counterparts, or do their source material any sort of justice. It's like going into a carnival funhouse and being greeted by a slaughterhouse, one that specializes in butchering beloved characters and selling hunks of their desecrated corpse for $7.50.
I promise I am not joking when I say that compared to Suicide Squad, Batman v Superman seems like the greatest film of all time. The representations of each character was so inaccurate, I could be convinced that this was actually an attempt at putting Section 8 on the big screen. For example, rather than making Harley Quinn the maniacal, obsessive, semi-strong character that she is, the audience was faced with 80 minutes of Margot Robbie's ass. Jared Leto's Joker felt more like a fan-fiction version of the clown that I would find at the bottom of a Tumblr post. His crazed obsession with Harley Quinn was upside down and inside out and wrong. I feel the concept of the Arkham Snake would be more accurate to the source material than this god-awful attempt at making an edgy, raw XD version of the beloved Clown Prince of Crime. That statement is to be taken literally. He actually physically roars, like Katy Perry throughout the entire movie in a strange display of insanity. I have no idea, but just like the rest of the film, it was a half-assed attempt at attempting. You can practically smell the awful Heath Ledger impression Leto was going for. Also, the trailers hinted towards the Joker having at least a slightly important role in the film, yet he is just as relevant to Task Force X as Ben Affleck's Batman was. That reminds me, Slipknot. The moment he appeared on screen as the man who can climb anything, Dominic gave him 5 minutes to live, and, well, he was correct. Slipknot was a joke that flopped so badly you forgot you were supposed to take him seriously, just like, well, the entirety of Suicide Squad. I wish, just like Slipknot, that I could hang myself from the ceiling and get my head blown off halfway through the movie to spare myself from the pain that I was about to endure.
For a split second, I was pleasantly surprised with the DCEU's adaptation of Killer Croc. He was animalistic, volatile, and filled with rage. But each successive minute of screen time that was given to this character managed to make him worse and worse and worse. And by the end of the movie, Killer Croc is gorging on junk food and watching trashy reality television. He isn't viewed by the audience as one of the most intimidating supervillains in all of Gotham. Instead, he is portrayed along the lines of Section 8's defenestrator, someone that isn't meant to be taken seriously. At all. In fact, I have a hard time taking anything in Suicide Squad seriously because of the sophomoric, asinine excuse for a script that this movie has. There isn't a single joke in this film that works, minus a mildly amusing joke about geometry at the tail end of the film. Every character is a cliche. Every action done to advance the plot doesn't make any sense. There isn't a single aspect of this film that doesn't come across as forced, and there isn't an ounce of humanity in a film that's, rather ironically, about saving the human race. Nothing in this film is new or novel. You get another generic apocalypse scenario. You get more poorly shot, horribly edited action sequences. For Christ's sake, you get another blue laser beam shooting up into the sky. They couldn't even change the damn color! Why not a red laser? Maybe a green one? How about orange for a change?
I don't think even the scriptwriter knew what the plot was. It seemed like he stopped writing halfway through and tried to remind himself what was going on, forgot, and continued writing along a completely different set of scenes, and he said, screw it. Let's keep everything the way it is and let's put a random sequence of disjointed scenes through Windows Movie Maker. I felt like I was watching the Hipsters and Aliens Pixels review. Spotty script writing at the beginning and then improv for the rest of the film. This may work for Dominic and me, but professional directors should not be held to the standard as low as Hipsters and Aliens. DC can usually capture action scenes rather well, but in this movie there are 2 large-scale action scenes where the exact same situation occurs and even some lines were repeated, such as, "Where is she?" and "They got Flag." Speaking of Rick Flag, holy Hendrix!
Oh man, I can't even begin to tell you how good this tastes. After those nasty MREs we've been living on, this tastes like heaven.
This ass biscuit is by far the most Breenian line delivery of any actor working in Hollywood.
I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide?
At least Margot Robbie owns her role. Joe Kinnaman can't even say I'm a soldier in character without stopping to moan mid-sentence. I nearly forgot his motive to save his girlfriend, as Joel makes literally no attempt to even look like he gives a hoot about what happens to June Moon. Or June... In general, Rick Flag is the worst white guy soldier stereotype ever put on the big screen, and is so horribly misplaced in this film that it actually ironically makes him fit in with the soulless band of uninspired misfits. Just like Rudolph.
For a movie that wants so desperately to be seen as unconventional and a breath of fresh air in DC's cinematic universe, it's especially upsetting that the movie seems too cowardly to separate itself from the conventions of the oversaturated superhero genre. The movie seems too scared to paint its villains as, well, villains. Deadshot, instead of being an egotistical sociopath, is a family man who deeply cares about his daughter. Joker, instead of taking advantage of Harley and physically and mentally abusing her, is portrayed as someone who actually deeply cares about Harley and will try and bust her out of any sticky situation. Harley, who literally would lose her will to live if the Joker were to die, sees his helicopter go down, presumes he's dead, and after about 5 minutes of mourning, rejoins the team, ready to fight. The fact that DC got these characters' motivations so horribly wrong, and the fact that fans are willing to defend this film, speaks volumes about the level of fanboyism on display here.
The concept of Suicide Squad is to do covert operations that would endanger the normal US military unit. Amanda Waller, the apparent baller, would not hire a man who throws boomerangs and a man who can climb walls to stop an apocalyptic event from occurring. That is what the Justice League is for. So as per usual, DC jumped the gun on their already pre-jumped gun that they already jumped over with the gun that they jumped over. Speaking of Amanda, she's clearly supposed to be covert and low-key, on the evil actions, but she does not whip out a pistol she would presumably keep in her car and mow down all of her allies with it. DC does not know the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath. Also, why are they trying to give Amanda no redeeming qualities whatsoever, but give the supervillains that are the stars of the film several heroic positive qualities? Why do I honestly feel like Deadshot is more heroic than Superman? Why?
Why? Speaking of the action scenes in this movie, why? Every single gunshot, every single punch lacks any sort of weight. The editing in this movie jumps from shot to shot every couple of seconds, and the soundtrack doesn't complement the action. In fact, the soundtrack in this movie really does just feel like an excuse to include as many recognizable pop songs as possible. In the first 10 minutes, it literally jumps between 5 separate pop songs. 5. That's one song every 2 minutes. Do your job, editors. Every single instance of potential excitement is essentially ruined by poor decisions in the editing room. In fact, the majority of the film features horrendous editing. Random cuts are placed in the middle of action scenes, and they serve to distract the audience rather than entertain them and keep them engrossed. Due to the headache-inducing speed at which each shot flashes before your eyes, you begin to lose track of what the hell is happening on screen. Supposedly, DC hired a trailer house to compile the existing footage they had into a more fast, fun flick. And dear God, does it show. I can only assume that the staff responsible for creating this monstrosity either lack basic editing skills or simply didn't think that their cut would actually be selected for the theatrical release.
It was beginning to become more evident in Bat v Super, but...
It was beginning to become more evident.
No, I said become.
No, he said come.
We will find out in a couple of minutes. It was beginning to become more evident in Bat v Super, but now I am 100% certain about the not-so-subtle misogynistic theme that wildly rages throughout the random sequences in recent DC films. From Lois Lane's distress scenes and bathtub sexy time to Slipknot breaking a woman's jaw for cheap laughs, these films are just like Clue Master, they're riddled with small sequences that appear...
You already have a Clue Master joke!
These films are riddled with small sequences that appear to be included to justify the helplessness that most females' characters portray. Harley's ditziness and cluelessness doesn't give the excuse to make the cameraman focus all shots on the Margot booty. Accepting that DC cannot properly portray females must be a hard and salty pill to swallow for hardcore fanboys, but rather than taking that pill, they instead fill their mouths with harder and saltier things. You know exactly what I'm implying here.
DC even tried to make El Diablo, literally the devil en Espanol, into a character with redeeming qualities. They want you to believe that, not unlike Deadshot, he's someone who deeply cares about his family. However, in El Diablo's flashback, all he does is slap his wife's ass, lie to her face, keep contraband in his house, endangers his family, and then murders his own children. How sympathetic.
It's almost as if comic-based movies cannot take a clue, Master, that female leads do not need to be included just to be eye candy for an audience or the only thing driving a stereotypical male leading role. A conclusion is usually used to sum up all that I have said, but I actually have even more to rant about. Unfortunately, Dominic won't let me create another improvised for 43-minute Pixels review, so I have to wrap things up here. The character inaccuracy and overall Swiss cheese of a script work together better than the actual squad itself to create a film so awful that it doesn't even deserve to be sarcastically compared to Citizen Kane.
And despite the critics panning this film, we went into Suicide Squad with an open mind. The fan reception was surprisingly good, and many people claimed that it was for the fans. So part of me was actually really excited for this film. I legitimately think, though, after enduring this torturous assault on my senses, that critics were too lenient on this piece of garbage, and that anyone who claims to unironically enjoy this film is either delusional or mentally unwell. Suicide Squad is an incredibly fitting title, because after this film, I wanted to drown myself in a bathtub filled with Clorox while inserting a barbed catheter directly into my urethra. It may seem harsh, but at least I would never have to endure a movie as excruciating as this one ever again. Our final score for Suicide Squad is a 1 out of 10.